Hello to everybody who's listening and watching tonight. I've got to apologise first of all because we didn't have a show for February. Yeah, February. This is the March talk for the Essex Essex UFO and Paranormal Group. As I say, there was so much sickness around for February and January, and Dave will back me up. He wasn't very well. I wasn't very well. I don't think anyone was. Everyone was sick, weren't they? But anyway, so we've got a March one here now, and as you can see by all these little labels and things here, we're going to be talking about mostly about the SEPI agency and what the paranormal police get up to, and investigating the paranormal, which is the way I've titled it. My guest, or I say, there's not really a guest because we're sort of having a chat, but it's Dave John is actually going to be talking to me today, and he started off the paranormal police or the SEPI agency, as we like to call it. Um, so, welcome to the show, David John.
Thank you very much, Dave. Good to see you again.
And to see you, and you see,
Um,
I've got my SEPI
yeah,
shirt on. Look, oh, sorry, that way round.
yeah, well
That way
done.
round.
Yeah,
No, that way round. Oh, it's funny on the camera. But yeah, I
yeah.
was just saying about the
You're
badges up here. Which one did you come up with, the paranormal police first, or the SEPI agency as such?
no, no. Let me tell you what happened. So, when I formed this back in August 2023, it was called the SEPI Agency. And SEPI stands for the Supernatural, Extra-terrestrial, and Paranormal Investigations Agency. Because I wanted the whole umbrella covered. I didn't want just to focus on UFOs or just ghosts or just supernatural things. I wanted the whole umbrella, the whole thing, the whole spectrum. Because I don't want the SEPI agency to become a MUFON
Hmm.
outfit, where we just focus solely on one subject. Because to me, to me, everything's intricately connected in some
Hmm.
way. So
Oh yeah, I definitely
just
agree with
focusing
you.
on one
Yeah.
area. Yeah. So SEPI was formed because of that. So it started off with just myself, obviously, and then I wrote my poor son into it as well. He was the second officer to join, but he's had a lifelong fascination as well. Um, Probably an influence from his dad, but yeah, he's been interested, so he's quite happy to join. So between the two of us, we ran a C5 investigation back in October of 2023. Yes, October
Yeah.
2023
That's the
was.
one at the Hadley Castle, was it?
That's right. That was Hadley Castle. We had about 40 people turn up for that,
Hmm.
which is really. So I'm deviating slightly. So I'll go back. So we are officially called the SEPI agency. However, when I came to the Essex UFO and Paranormal Group one evening, David Hobbs there said, "Oh, would you like to get up on stage and just talk a little bit about the agency?" Um, because him and Sue Lee were interested, I think, in my concept of what I call a para investigations team, because it's very different. Because as you know, I'm a serving police officer. I'm using policing techniques, and as you well know, because you're one of the trained officers within the team, where we are ruling out the natural stuff first, the
Yeah.
logical. So we are documenting, we're taking witness accounts. If necessary, we conduct interviews. Although we're still yet to do a proper interview for anybody, but you're trained in that as you've had the training yourself. It's
Yeah,
quite a
but
robust.
like you say, you have to train you. We haven't actually put it into practice yet.
Yeah, but
So,
not the interview side, no. So, but we have done a couple of witness accounts. But yeah, so I'm based on that because we're in investigations in criminality. If you don't document something accurately, then it doesn't hold any water. There's no point. So
mm,
there's no point going to any paranormal thing and just saying, "Oh, let's have a look around and get your PK meter out and silly things like that." You're not capturing any evidence. You're not documenting that evidence. You're not storing it, and you're not presenting it. It's not in a presentable package. And I want the SEPI agency to be taken seriously as a proper agency. Hence the word agency. We're not a group or a fan club or anything like that. We're an agency. You won't see the SEPI agency managing or running a ghost hunt walk. We won't be doing that. It's not what we're here for. So with that policing ethics to behind it and the techniques. I think David and Sue are like interested in different slant. I think they're skeptical still, if you want my honest opinion,
Well,
if it can work.
I know you are, and I am as well. You got to be skeptical first, don't you? Anyway,
Yeah,
you got to
yeah,
start out as skeptical.
yeah. But David and Sue said, like, get up on stage and see what you're about. And I think I was there to promote the CE5 event anyway. So I
Mm,
said, okay.
that's right. Yeah, I
So I
remember that.
stood up on stage, done an unscripted, so I didn't know it was coming, introduction to the SEPI agency. And then afterwards, during the break, a little guy come up to me, and I can't, for the life of me, remember who it is. Um, is a small fellow, as I remember, and he said to me, "Oh, are you that police, that that paranormal police bloke?" And I was like, yeah, no, yeah, I suppose so. I just thought it funny, but when he said it, I thought, you know what, that
It
kind
kind
of
of clicked, yeah.
yeah, that's a good marketing tool to use. So the paranormal police is our marketing tool. It's our because it says this, it says exactly it does what it says on the tin. Paranormal police. We are investigating the paranormal. I mean, it does still cover UFOs and anything else, but that's what it is. So actually, it's a stroke of genius that guy saying that to me. So I thought, yeah, I like that because it's exactly what we are. And as you well know, Dave, we've now got another police officer in the team, possible another one about to join as well. We've had Michael, shout out to Michael. He was an ex-police officer of the Met. So, we are having that sort of background there anyway in policing. Also, we've got an aviation firefighter just joined the team as well. My son is serving the British Army. So we are trying to base ourselves on this framework that I think government sector would be familiar with and comfortable with. And the reason I feel that's important is because I want to be in a position one day where we've got a case that is so watertight and the evidence is so strong that we can take it to a government body or scientific community and say, this is real. You need to take note of this. This needs to be looked into. And the evidence that is given to them is the format that they're familiar with. So it's not, and excuse the pun, it's not alien to them.
Mm. And also,
They're
like you
going
say,
to,
it doesn't just have to be UFOs anyway. It could be a
no.
very strong ghost case or something like that.
Well, as I keep saying, and I know people get sick of me saying this, but we don't just investigate, we innovate as well. So we're not just an investigations team. We are coming up with new hypotheses to help answer some of the age-old problems. So, for example, one of those is what are apparitions?
Mm.
Now, what are ghosts? So I sat down, had a big long think about this, looked at stone theory, other sort of types of answers and questions, and come up with something I've now labeled traumatic time impressions. So a traumatic time impression is a new hypothesis that is basically, I'm going to keep it short in a nutshell. I'm basically saying that a large amount of apparitions that are seen are not ghosts at all. They're, in fact, still unique because you're still seeing an amazing supernatural event, but it's not a paranormal event. And the reason you can tell the difference is because those apparitions won't even acknowledge you. They won't see you.
Mm.
Um, they'll walk through things that have probably been built after they existed. Right. So
Yeah,
in
so
this
what you're
sense,
saying, it's like a recording, basically,
yeah, yeah.
within the structure of a building or whatever.
And it's perfectly natural. Now, I can already hear people screaming, it's residue energy.
Mm.
Not residue energy. And the reason for that is because residue energy is only normally felt by particular people that kind of finely tuned into
Mm.
that frequency and they can see something that the person next to them won't see. Okay. And they may pick up on what they call residue energy, but I don't really buy that theory because one of the stories in a video that I've created about TTIs, traumatic time impressions, one of the main stories is about the first civil war in in the UK back in 1642 at Edge Hill. So it's known as the Battle of Edge Hill, 1642, which occurred, I think it was, oh, I haven't got my notes in front of me. I think it was October 23rd, 1642. So the first civil war against the Roundheads and Cavaliers. And 27,000 men fought that day, that battle, and 1,000 of them lost their lives, which is actually quite good. I mean, one loss is bad enough, but consider
Consider it
20,
27,000. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
1,000, you
Well,
got
there
off
must have been
lightly.
quite a lot of injuries as well, though. I would have thought.
Oh God, yeah, they're probably more than doubled that in injuries, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably 5, 6,000 in injuries alone and missing limbs and all awful things. But 1,000 people died that day,
Mm.
and so you move on from that, and then 24th of December. So we're now talking Christmas Eve of that same year. Um, Shepherds are outside. This is like 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's British weather in December. It must have been freezing, but they're out there and they're dealing with their sheep or whatever they've got to do, and then they hear sounds of battle like approaching them, and then the next thing they know, they are seeing an entire battle right in
Mm.
front of them being played out, and to multiple witnesses, multiple shepherds. So they were so convinced it was happening around them, they hid because they thought they were going to get struck by something,
Mm.
by a stray round or cannon fire, or trampled by a horse. Or sat there transfixed for 3 hours in the cold. Nobody sits in, December weather in the UK for 3 hours for no good reason
Mm.
because they were so petrified. And then it just all vanished. So then they got up and they made their way to the nearest town of Clinton and told the justice of the peace and the minister of what they saw. They were like distraught. So the next day, so now talking Christmas Day's happened. Now what? Fast forward to 1 o'clock in the morning. So now really it's a 26th of December and 1 o'clock in the morning. The minister and the justice of the peace and other townfolk all go out to that same area to see if they can see it again. Half probably expecting to see nothing. But the reason they did that is because the guys that went back to report this were quite known and were known not to be, big drinkers or anything like that. They're quite, respected people. So they all went out there again and they saw it again. The whole thing happened again. And then everybody fled back to the town, locking their doors, calling for their God to protect them, saying the devils are come, all this sort of stuff.
I'll tell you,
So
it's
the
a
whole
shame nobody tried to film it, though, isn't it? You know.
was 1642.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was yeah, no, I was thinking about the later farmers. Sorry,
Well, I'll be amazed if
but
this footage is
hadn't. I
1642.
mean, I thought that people, more modern times have seen it. I thought there'd been more modern witnesses to it.
No, but here's the thing.
That's what I
So
meant.
yeah, so here's the thing. They were so petrified. The whole town was now petrified that word got back to King Charles I of panic so badly that he
Mm,
felt compelled to send six of his own officers down to the town to actually tell, I mean, their brief was, can you go and calm them down? You know, it's
yeah.
obviously something spook them that doesn't exist. Go and investigate. It must have been really serious for a king to take it seriously and to send six of his officers,
Mm,
British Army officers. So the officers went down the following weekend. So all this happened in the space of a week, you know, being reported to the king. Well, the following Saturday and Sunday, because what I should have said the other day for a weekend. Now, for those of you who do diligent research, you're going to now go on your calendar and look for the day of the 24th of December, 1642, and you're going to shout to me, "How's a Wednesday?" Yeah, it is on our calendar, but they wasn't using our calendar back then. Because I also had that question and I had to go to the British Archives to try and understand why. But it's because our calendars weren't what we're using now. and some of it was in use and some of it wasn't. So it actually doesn't matter
No, I
that the
didn't know
date.
that. So when did that change then, I wonder? And
Um,
how? How did that come about?
yeah, I have got that on my notes, and it is said. I think I mentioned that in the video as well. I can't remember top of my head, but there was a specific date. I mean, it's where April Fool's Day's come from. It's not anything about
Mm,
playing tricks.
mm,
It's because propaganda was used to use the new calendar system. And anybody that thought 1st of April was the beginning
okay.
of the year was seen as a fool. Now, where have we seen those propaganda techniques used recently, where
Yeah,
everybody right was made to look a fool?
yeah,
I'll leave that
everywhere.
one there
Yeah.
hanging there. But they were using those techniques even back then. But that's why you got April's Fool's Day. It's got nothing to do with tricksters. It's about making people that wouldn't adopt the new calendar, make them look stupid and foolish,
Yeah.
which is disgusting.
Mm,
I don't celebrate April Fool's Day because I'm not a fool for a start, and the calendar we use now is incorrect. And I can go into that later if you wish, because there should be 13 months in a year, not 12.
yeah.
But anyway, that's maybe another story. But so, so going back to the story, so the officers are now there the following week, Saturday and Sunday. They go out to the field again with other witnesses, and they see it again. It happens again on both nights, Saturday and Sunday. And the officers are like astounded. And not only that, which is what makes it even more compelling, is that some of those officers actually served in that battle. They
Oh.
recognise people,
Mm,
including Sir Edmund Varney, who was the standard carrier, who I think had his handle chopped off because he's holding the standard. That's a rubbish job, by the way, battle to
not
run
one you'd
around
go
the horse
after.
carrying a flag. You're
Which
not,
I don't think I don't think I'd like to be any of it anyway, to be honest.
no,
Anywhere there.
no, no. So now it's happened 4 times.
Mm,
Twice one weekend and twice another weekend. And guess what happens the following weekend? Same thing happens again, Saturday and Sunday. Just incredible. So the six officers have now got a problem. They can't, you know, calm the town. They can't tell them they're imagining things because they've seen it on
mm,
4 occasions now. So they go back, swear an oath to the king that it's all true. And it was documented. It's meant to be one of the first paranormal or ghost stories ever documented in the British archives. And me being me and being what you have to do in a SEPI agency, you have to follow every lead. So I tried to look for that story in writing. I contacted the British Archives or National Archives as it's called now, the Westminster one, and a few others as well around the area. And although the original document is now doesn't exist anymore, a guy wrote about this exact event 200 years later in 1842. I know 200 years is a long
mm,
time, but it's not really back then when their method of storytelling was still paperwork and vocal. So he wrote about this battle and this ghostly experience in 1842, and I've got the copy of that. It is I've obtained that as a PDF now. Obviously it's an old document. It's been scanned on the National Archives and it exists. So I've got that. Now, when the guy gave it to me, was it Shropshire? No, it's not right. And again, it's on the video. But when the guy gave it to me, he emailed me the copy. He said, "Oh, just to let you know, I've read the section you're referencing, and I think you'll find that he was writing with a air of skepticism." I said, "Okay, it's fine. I'll read it." I read it, and no, the guy's wrong. The guy that wrote the story fully believed everything because he actually says that these guys were made to make an oath to the king. Swear it to an oath. Now, back in those days, if you lied to your king, you didn't live very long.
mm,
And you're not going to lie. And the fact that they recognise men in that battle. Now, the reason why this story is so important to the theory of traumatic time impressions is because there's one key thing that people overlook in this story is that when the witnesses are watching the battle, they weren't seeing 1,000 dead men. They are seeing 27,000 men, mostly alive, apparitions of living people. They weren't dead. 27,000 men didn't die that day. So
Mm.
they're not ghosts.
Yeah, it's an
They,
interesting effect, actually, what
yeah,
you've just said there. Yeah.
exactly. So that means they didn't see ghosts.
Mm.
There were no ghosts there that those six occasions, but they did see a supernatural, and the emphasis on the word natural, event. Something replayed, something triggered this, and this is where the term traumatic time impression comes from, because I firmly believe that the trauma of that large battle just imprinted in time space itself at that very moment, and it just smashed against the wall of time because of the feeling that traumatic vibration that was out, and fear of all those men collectively just pushed it all out onto the ether, and it was slammed against something that just cycled round and came
Mm.
back, played, cycled round, came back, replayed. But I find it fascinating that it happened six occasions on 2 weekends, like a week from each other, but
Mm.
then there's no other report.
Mm. See, I was
I
under
don't
the
get,
impression, sorry, I was under the impression there'd been some later sightings as well. So I must have misunderstood that from that fact. Um,
well, the case is not closed. So I've been wanting for a while to reopen the investigations into the town of Kyneton and Edge Hill, by contacting those uh, um, public houses in those locations, and then asking the question: are people still seeing anything,
mm,
or are there more recent stories, more recent than 1642, 1643? Um, and it might well be, Dave, but I don't know yet because I've not done the digging yet, and I will, because the TTI hypothesis is an open investigation. And I tell the story of Ed Chill because it's so compelling,
mm,
and it's so obvious that we're not seeing ghosts. Because how can you see 26,000
mm.
living? You can't. But you can see, a replay of a natural replay. So yeah, so that's why I've called it traumatic time impression. Now, it doesn't have to be a large amount of people, by the way. It doesn't have to be the Gettysburg battle, or on the fields of France, in the trench. It doesn't have to be that. It can be just one single apparition from a person that's gone traumatically or very suddenly, or there's been some sort of fear involved in it first, but something, even on one person, can still leave that hole that can replay. And not, that, I think, will explain a lot of apparitions that people see when they see, like, the spooky monk walking through a graveyard, or the woman in black wandering the
Mm.
halls of a mansion, and
Well,
all these sort
we've heard this story about the Romans as well, haven't we? Where they're
of.
actually sort of the level of their feet is lower down, and they're sort of, so obviously they could be the same thing,
They
something
absolutely are
historical. Yeah.
the same thing. So that's why we've called it a traumatic time impressions hypothesis. Now, before everyone starts jumping down my throat, oh, he's wrong, blah blah blah. It's a hypothesis. It means that there's a foundation. So start building on it. Start trying to prove me wrong, or prove me right, or come up with new angles on it,
Mm.
and start building it all together to get the actual answer. Because the golden nugget for me in proving TTIs are real is being in a position where we're able to trigger these events deliberately. Can you imagine
Mm.
going to Edge Hill, doing whatever you need to do, and then you all see it happen in front of you, all
Yeah.
of you,
Mm.
not just the psychic ones or the ones that feel they're special. Every single one of you see it in front of you. That even video cameras today may even be able to pick up. Imagine being able to do that.
Mm.
I believe it's possible.
Mm.
And then you start looking at, wow, well, where does that take us? If we now have a device, or know how to trigger these events, that means we can see things that happened in the past. So you've almost got a time machine on your hands now, or chronosphere, as the Vatican have got. They've got a device that apparently, allegedly, I'm not sure, can see past events. They turn these knobs and things, and somehow they're able to see on a really terrible screen a past event happening. Now, I'm skeptical about that because one of the events they said they've seen is is Jesus Christ being hung on the cross. But that theory falls apart if that event never happened in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical about that even happening anyway.
Mm.
And the reason I'm skeptical about that story is because the story of, a savior sacrificing himself has come from many other stories
Different other
before.
stuff. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Come
There's
from
no
Samaria.
actual evidence of it, is there?
No, there's not a shred of evidence of it, unfortunately. There's more evidence that ghosts and UFOs exist
Mm.
than there is of the actual existence of Jesus Christ. As bad as that may sound to budding Christians out there and stuff, but it's just there isn't, and we can't just take people's word for it, especially when the can have been edited so many times throughout the history. How can you trust it? So, so is the chronosphere um, real? Well, if they go on that story, then I'm going to doubt it's real anyway. Totally doubt that. But if it is real and they do have such a device, then they already know then how to recreate these TTIs, these
Mm.
traumatic time pressure, to replay something. And that would be fascinating piece of equipment to get your hands on.
Mm.
But I think we can do it.
Mm.
I think there's somebody out there that may know how to do this and think they're going crazy because they see ghosts that don't interact with them often. And they've got something, or they do a ritual, or they say something, whatever it is, whatever the trigger is, I think someone can do it. And I'd love to hear from anybody that thinks they can do that, but you have to be brave enough to prove it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Anyone watching this out there, you can always, when this video is out on the YouTube site that it will be on, you can just comment on it, and Dave will get to hear about it. So will I, and then we can take it up with you. If you've got something interesting to say, sort of evidence wise, it'd be interesting to hear from you. Um,
Yeah. And if
yeah,
anybody lives near the town of Edge Hill or Kyneton,
yeah.
and you're still hearing those stories of the Battle of Edge Hill, please let us know.
Well, it
We
makes you
can
feel like doing a little road trip up there, doesn't it? To be honest.
Yeah, well, that's why I want to make phone calls first, because if we can make a few phone calls to public houses up there, and we get a few positive hits, like, oh yeah, yeah, there is a story, quite more recent, then
Mm,
it's worth doing. But if nobody's ever heard of it, you know,
mm,
because unfortunately, part of my hypothesis on the TTIs is that they eventually ripple away and don't come back
mm,
ever. But the stories remain. The few people that saw it at the time
mm,
are going to tell that story for hundreds of years. So
mm,
the story remains, but the actual event may not ever happen again.
mm.
And that'd be a sad thing if they don't ever actually replay. It would be
Yeah.
but I've got a bad feeling it probably doesn't.
Mm,
Ripple away like ripples on a lake. They
yeah.
just go. But how did they come back six
Mm,
times in
mm,
a row,
mm.
7 days
I mean, I
apart? I
must
don't.
admit that I'd never heard of it until you mentioned it. Sort of when I first heard it a few months ago. Um,
So,
but it
so
is a
basically,
very interesting, fascinating story, and you sort of pointed out a few facts that how they're obviously not ghosts that people are seeing, like you say, because not everyone was dead.
no, they won't.
You know.
But they were in fear.
Mm,
They were scared for their lives. But nobody wants war. Nobody wants
no, of
war.
course not.
A handful of people that wants war, and they use
Yeah,
poor
they want everyone
soldiers.
else to fight, not them.
Yeah, yeah. Put their kids on the front line, they'll probably change their minds. Give me
Yeah,
2 seconds.
yeah. Have a drink. I'll have a drink as well.
Yeah, I have to apologise. My throat is still damaged from
Yeah, I
hooping
keep
cough.
getting a dry throat. Funny enough, I
Yeah,
woke up last night coughing with a dry throat.
my throat every now and then just collapses again.
Hmm.
So I have to clear it. So yeah, that's one of the hypotheses that SEPI are investigating. It's going to take a while to really get the evidence together, but already there I think they've given compelling reasons as to why there weren't
Yeah,
ghosts
yeah,
and why apparitions generally are not ghosts. You
yeah.
know, they're not. I mean, there are spirits. Obviously, there are entities which I'll
Yeah,
come to
I was
next.
going to go on to that. I mean, what is your actual belief about actual ghosts and spirits themselves, anyway?
Okay, so I think the world of the paranormal is very muddied. Too many terminologies and too many names for things, and really, there's there are alien races. There are extra dimensional uh, races or entities. There are earth elements or elementals, and there are things that live underground. You know, these things are all real. But what I'm struggling to get my head around is people dealing with what they call spirits, because there's something known as extra dimensional entities, which is one of our other hypotheses,
Hmm.
which is suggesting that living alongside us on a separate vibration to our own are entities that feed on low vibration. So where we go and eat food, like I had a terrible chicken and chips tonight, um, I ate that, it went in my body, it digests, and it really transforms into energy for me, which keeps me alive. And then my system, because I'm a biological entity, decides to turn it into waste, and it comes out the other end a bit later on. And but what it's done in that process is converted a solid matter thing into energy to feed our bodies. So it's not food feeding us really. The food is carrying that energy. So everything we eat and drink is just an energy and vibrational. So these entities, they live on a low vibration. They can see it. They're like, imagine sharks swimming around in the ether. And then when they see a beacon flashing in the distance, they all swim to it because it's food for them.
Hmm.
And that beacon is us being depressed, self-destroying, be it in trauma, self-loathing. It's all the negative stuff. Um, People just live their lives in
And
a
all the hate
bad.
you hear nowadays. There's so much hate
Yeah,
in this world.
yeah, yeah. That's what it is, and they will go to that source,
Hmm.
and if they think that's a strong source, they'll feed from it. It's not their fault. I kind of feel I have empathy for these entities. They're just trying to survive like we are, but they're doing it without our consent. Ultimately, we don't. I mean, I know I didn't ask that chicken and chips earlier if I can eat it, so maybe it's not that indifferent. But they're feeding on us without really our consent and knowledge in most part, and it's making people ill. It's making them physically ill. It's making them mentally ill. So these entities do, and they've been around for a lot longer than us. They're probably, I don't know if they were here on Earth before us or
Hmm.
they came to because of us. I'm not entirely sure which way around that is, but they're definitely here now, and they've definitely been changing the course of history of humanity for a long, long time. Which is why we've still got poverty. It's why we've still got wars, still got hatred. Why are we not in love? Why are we not
Hmm.
just, we don't have borders? Why do we have borders? Why do we have to live under a monetary system? Why can't we just be more given to each other and just be more happy and grounded? But we're not. We're pushed into materialism, which I'm guilty of. I've got every techie thing you can think of, and I love my internet and all that's. I love the tech stuff, but really, it's materialism rubbish that we don't really need. Because we've lost our ability to communicate at far vast distances like we
Hmm.
used to be able to. But these things are very skillful, so they can come into this vibration and out of it again. So these entities are master deceivers. They are absolute liars and mimics. So if you are like suffering from schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, and you're hearing voices and all this stuff, you they communicate with you. They're trying to keep you in a low vibrational state by telling you you're worthless and don't go out with your friends, or people are gaslighting you, and all this, they just keep you there. And the more you listen to it, and the more, and you probably don't tell anybody else, you don't want to be seen as insane. the more you listen to it, the more healthy food source you are for them. And they keep coming. Now, and then throughout history, they've been referred to as demons because they have plagued people for many years. So they've been incorrectly called demons. And with that, because we're human, we have to put a face on everything. It's in our innate nature to stick a face on something we don't quite understand.
Yeah,
I
label
think
it
it
with
helps.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's something to blame or something to worship. So we give them names. We give them names like Lucifer, Baal, and all these other demonic names that we give, and it gives them more energy because as soon as you say the word demon, people are like in fear and their backs go up. But, you know, oh God, a demon. And the films. There's a film about demon, like the Paranormal Activity films. If you've seen those,
Mm.
it's just like, especially the first film, Paranormal Activity, where they suggest it's a demon at large. People are terrified of demons. And then I've got a book at home called Demons and Demonology. It's about that thick. It's got every name of demon in that book and characteristics of that demon that you could possibly think of, including Jesus Christ, strangely. Who knew? Um, they're all in there. And to me, it's a big book of lies. It's a big book of EDEs, extra-dimensional entities, who've just decided to go with whatever name that you gave it. So if you say, oh, Bale has come through, it'd be Bale for the day. He doesn't care. As long as he's feeding, he doesn't really care.
Mm.
And I've said this many times, it can come through somebody that you idolized, like a film star, rock star, pop star, Elvis Presley, Bruce Lee, Marilyn
Boy, watch
Monroe.
it.
They will come to you and talk to you
Mm.
exactly as those people did, because they will sound exactly the same. But there'll be one difference. It won't be the same. They will say something a bit out of character. So if you knew the person, let's say it's a relative that's passed on, and you're in contact with them, and you hear them a lot, and you talk to them a lot, and you feel, oh, this is good. But are they really them,
Mm.
or is it the EDEs? Making sure that you're still in your mourning state, you're still, suffering, just so they can feed off you because you've gone through something traumatic, you've lost something you love. But that person that you knew well might just say something every now and then that you think it's a bit odd because it's not them, it's the EDEs. So I have a real problem with demonology as a concept, with people writing books about them all and giving them names. And well, you're wrong, Dave, because you look back in history, they're, worshipping them and they've got statues. And
Mm.
of course they were, because they were doing it a long time ago. And people back then
They just
absolutely,
imagined what that demon might look like, I guess.
they might have also seen it for themselves.
Mm.
I still think back in the past, they were able to tap into these realms far easier than we can now.
Mm.
So I think they probably saw these things because there's been a couple of occasions where they have been caught on camera and they do look like demonic horned entities. So they do look like what you'd imagine as a devil would look like. And one of them is, I'd love to get hold of this lady, but she it happened in Australia. So the mum and dad had gone out for the evening, left the grandparent at home to babysit the child. She's got a baby monitor which has now flipped into infrared mode because it's the lights are off, so it's black and white. And then she heard a noise upstairs. She looks on the monitor and sees someone standing over the crib or the cot. And it was skinny, it was translucent, it had horns on its head, and it looked bloody horrible. It did look terrifying. She freaked out, but the camera was recording, so it got in the national press
Mm.
in Australia. And I'd love to get hold of that lady because I'm fascinated by the fact that somehow an infrared camera caught an entity because I've got infrared cameras and I've not seen anything ever with them, So it, the infrared spectrum can't be the thing that picks them up. Something happened. Somehow that entity exposed themselves to infrared light. Because if that lady had been in the room, she would not have seen it with her naked eye because we can't see infrared. We need the cameras to translate it, don't we? so we can see it. So as you know, we only see a very tiny spectrum of vibration anyway. All the colours you see are just a very tiny
Mm.
band of
We
vibration.
see
That's
about
all it
that much, don't we? When it's that much,
is.
or more than
And
that much.
these things, these entities live,
Yeah.
we if they probably live within that. So I'm so fascinated at how on earth an IR camera caught it. It could be completely faked, but that's why the SEPI agency don't just look at video evidence. We look at the people.
Mm.
Who are the people? What's their motivations? What have they got out of it? If they are gaining something out of this, like they want some millions of views on YouTube and monetization and notoriety and all this
And there's a
stuff,
lot of it out there, isn't there, Dave? But,
yeah, yeah, there is. And that Jerusalem UFO case is one of those we can talk about if you wish a bit later. But yeah, I mean, but if they're like absolutely terrified by this thing and don't want it to be public, then it's more likely this event actually did happen. And that to me is more fascinating than the big famous things. So these entities are real. They are affecting people's mental health. If you go onto our YouTube channel at SEPI Hype, at SEPI Agency on YouTube, there's a video called Introduction to EDEs, which explains all of this and the characteristics to look for. Um, and the interview with Jerry Mazinski, who's a psychotherapist of 40 years based in Arizona. And he has spent 40 years with the criminally insane. So he's been in the worst places on earth. And he spoke to many criminals that claim to hear the voices and feel that they're possessed by something. And what he's done is rather than say these are hallucinations, he's taken seriously what the content of those conversations. And he did deduce, like us, that these things there's a real um, you know, modus operandi going on. Something's behind this, a consciousness. These are not just random hallucinations. As he told me, and I've read, hallucinations are random. They're either good, bad, indifferent, crazy. They're all sorts of things. They're all up and down. But these things are constantly just keeping someone in a negative state. There's a consciousness behind it to keep that person from doing anything good in their life and keeping in this circle of misery. Because the more that person stays in a circle of misery, the more they can feed. And
mm,
what better place than to feed than from prisoners? Their lives are perpetually miserable because of where they are, or the guilt they've had to face from their crimes. And then you've got to start wondering, did they do these crimes or were they made to do these crimes? So it's a real big can of worms.
yeah.
It's
It also makes you think about the people that run this planet, or have been running this planet, the misery they put everyone through, basically, make everyone worry all the time, constantly about war or famine or God knows what, or explosions and terrorists and all sorts of stuff all the time. Do you reckon that's part of it, that they get, they're part of the feeding process?
so the next video on EDAs is going to be about Hollywood. And it's not unique just to Hollywood. It's anybody in influential positions, I believe. I think Hollywood and politicians are infested with these things. These things have got so much power, they can give you fame and riches as a reward.
Hmm.
It can literally give you what you want.
Yeah, Mark
As long as
Sexton, right? No, not Mark Sexton. Mark Devlin actually writes a lot about that, doesn't he, in his books?
I
Mark
don't know.
Sexton's another. Mark Sexton's somebody else. But Mark Devlin is a. He's got three books out about a lot of that, and it goes right into the devil worship within music,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, and it does happen,
Mm,
and it is happening. So we have a level of these beings, these entities, entering people unknowingly. But we've also got a group of people that are allowing them to enter
mm,
knowingly
mm,
with rituals or through desperation. So the story I always cast here as an example is just imagine yourself a struggling young actor. You've given up your life in Texas and you travel to Hollywood to make it as a big rock, movie star. 5 years later, you can't pay your rent. You're working in Wendy's. You got no real life prospect, and you probably started drinking too much or taking drugs. Doing things you shouldn't be doing because you're so miserable. But imagine now that person going back to their little room and just crying their eyes out in a right state and just falling out, going, "I'll do anything. Just give me what I want." At that moment, that person can be inviting an EDE straight into their lives, and they're making that contract with them, literally the deal with the devil. And then, strangely, the phone starts ringing. They start getting through the auditions, start getting noticed, and it happens very quickly. So where you see actors going, "Oh, it took me 6, 7, 8 years to become famous." I bet you nothing was going on for 6 or 7, 8 years. They're just doing what they could. But suddenly, when it happened, it just happened,
Mm.
and
I
it
mean, also, I
rocketed.
don't think you're saying it happens with absolutely everybody, are you? It's
No,
just the,
no,
the odd.
but not. Just a majority.
Would you say that? See, I don't agree with that. I mean, I've heard some absolute crap about the Beatles and stuff. That if
Oh,
you actually
yeah,
look at about their later years, their later years show a lot of evidence that the earlier years were actually true to what the story was. Because of
right.
their personal relationships and court cases about money and everything else like that. So,
Yeah.
I
Not,
wouldn't say it
not
happens in every
saying
case,
it. No, I mean, there are people with just natural talent and they get lucky, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are given talent literally through this contract.
or
I've
non
heard,
or non-talent, but a lot of them as well.
yeah, I mean, um, there's a young lady, I don't think I should say her name, but she's the most highest paid pop star on the entire planet. She's almost a billionaire, okay? And yet, when you actually look at her, she's not much to look at. She's quite plain and normal, and her voice sounds like any other girl of her age who can sing in tune. In my view, she's got nothing special. But how on earth has she got to the where she is to being a billionaire at her age, and she's got so many, such a following of people. I just don't understand it. I don't see any talent there. But you see talent in people like, it's called up Mr. Presley there. We see innate talent or talent that's been worked on, like sportsmen, sports people that just work hard and hard and hard and get really good because of the hard work they're putting in. But you get others that just seem to have this natural talent from nowhere. And the reason I say it, I remember hearing I'm not going to say which rock band it is, but I remember seeing an audition tape of quite a famous rock band that I quite like. It's a British rock band. And the singer could not sing. He was awful, bloody awful. But then strangely, he can sing now, and the band become really successful. There's also an American huge rock band as well, done really well in the 80s and 90s. Got massive stars. And I heard him singing in his early years. He could not sing to save his life. But now suddenly he got this voice from somewhere and the band become phenomenal. Well, for selling out gigs all over the world, as far as Japan, everywhere. I don't get it how that has suddenly happened. So you don't just suddenly learn how to sing with a unique voice.
Mm.
Because a good singer is known by their uniqueness, isn't it? You know that Presley's singing, don't you?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Joe Elliott is singing, or you
I
know
mean,
that Stephen.
I've got to say that, Dave. I mean, for all the ones that actually do make it, there's thousands out there that don't, and they're probably
Oh,
just as good a lot of the time.
yeah,
You know, apart
yeah,
from there'll be never been other Elvis, but
no,
but you know
no,
what I'm saying. I mean, for all the good bands that do make it, there's 1,000 out there who have probably got the same wishes, the same wants, and the same needs as the ones that do make it.
yeah, but
So.
they're not prepared to give up their souls for it,
Mm.
right? Or they don't know how to, and that's the difference. I mean, I was a musician. I personally would not give up my soul just for that. Just to
But were you
have.
asked to?
No, I was never asked to, but I don't. I think you can ask. I don't think you need to be asked. I think you can go and ask, but you're going to pay a huge price.
Mm.
You're going to die young, and when you die, I have no idea what happens to your soul afterwards. But I don't think it'd be pretty. And I'm not saying there's a hell because I don't think there is. I think this is it. You're looking at it. We are it.
Well, it can't be any worse than I think now.
No, but I think there's some sort of a contractual agreement made there to so these entities can keep feeding. I mean, look at poor Robin Williams, a fantastic actor who just held centre court on any screen he was on. He was so miserable. He was so depressed, you know, that his outward persona was nothing like what was going on
Mm.
inside. And
That's
he even
actually happened
said,
with a lot of comedians, isn't it? And people
yeah,
like that. People like
a lot,
Peter Sellers. I think Tony Hancock was. They were manic depressives, weren't they?
yeah, and they end up committing suicide,
Mm.
and going too early. And you think, how does a man that's world famous, a fantastic actor, he's got millions of pounds in the bank, should be living the dream, be so miserable? Just shouldn't, that doesn't compute. Because if you and I suddenly got multiple millions of pounds, I think we'd be quite happy with that
Mm.
and know how to spend it and use it and make other people's lives a bit easier with it as well. But these guys, they're so miserable, and it's so sad. And then therefore the question is, just what my new video will be going into, should we really be idolizing these people as we do? Because what are we really idolizing here? So that's a deep question, and it's going to divide. I know people watching this are going to have all sorts of views, but you really got to think about this because
Mm.
you're going to feel this. Because I always say, um, I say conversion is the same thing, but I always say that we receive bullshit through the ears and process it through the brain,
Mm.
but we feel truth in the heart.
Yeah.
So as I speak now, I'll say to anybody who's watching this, take a moment, take a breath. Are you processing bullshit or are you feeling something in your heart?
I've got to put an X certificate on this now, don't you?
You warn me.
Now, I'll tell you what, I want to pick up on something there you said about. I mean, everyone knows I'm a big Elvis fan, but I would never say that I was actually idolised him. I just I love his music and I love the movies and all sorts. I wouldn't say I idolised him to say, oh, he's God or anything like that. So, do you see
You just
what I'm
like,
getting
hey,
at? Or the Beatles, I like the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones, I like all of those. But I wouldn't say
yeah,
I idolised them.
yeah, but there are those that do, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
just
I
and live
know. I do agree with you. I know they'd sort
the
of
life.
look. Yeah.
So back in, a few thousand years ago, the idols back then were very different. They weren't pop stars and stuff. They were like, prophets or gods or
Mm,
literal idols.
mm,
They made it themselves. They had other ways of doing it, and now these days that's all been replaced with rock stars, pop stars, and movie stars. And the emphasis again is on the last word of all of those stars, illumination. So you join the dots because all I'm going to do in that video is put all the dots in place and allow people to go and join them up because I think there's something very bad happening that we need to be aware of. And the moment we can start saying these things are real, start accepting the fact that they're real, then we can start fighting back. So when people said to me before, what are you going to do? You're going to kill demons? Are you a demon hunter? Absolutely no. It's a stupid idea. Nobody can do that. What we can do, because they're energy, just like us, you can't kill them. So anybody says I'd kill demons, please take a breath.
or
You don't kill demons,
what about
right?
sending them
Nobody.
back to where they came from? Or you're allowed to, can you, do they do
Ah,
that? When you get these people that say they can do that. I mean,
they're like exorcisms that make people worse.
yeah,
No, I'm not in for that either. So you can't get rid of them. There's another important factor to the EDEs. Time does not exist in the same way as it does for us. We invented linear time just so we knew what time to go to the pub.
yeah, yeah, or go
That's
to
it,
work or
really.
get up. Yeah, yeah.
We can organise our average day in our 3D environment, in our 3D world. So we needed something, we needed something. We needed a forward and we needed a backwards and we needed a now. So therefore, we've got a linear timeline. So whenever we say a date, like I've mentioned 1642, I'm talking now past. So it's linear. But to EDEs, time doesn't exist in the same way. It's a big ball of time that's all happening, spinning around all at once. And I tell people to imagine it as a big ball of string. Say the string is a linear time, but then you're making a big ball out of it, and it's going to overlap itself
Mm,
all over the
mm.
place. And those points where they overlap, you can translate those as openings or portals or anything you want to call them, but they're drop points. And they can go in and out, up and down, this way, that way. Literally, they don't care about time. So, and also I could go on all night about this, but there's a famous exorcist case which was turned into a Netflix documentary and a book from Ed and Lorraine Warren, in fact, where where a 13-year-old child or 12-year-old child was possessed, and long story short, they end up dragging this poor kid into a church under the permission of the Catholic Church and doing an exorcism on him. And present was the priest. I don't know if Ed and Lorraine, there must have been there too, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Um, the boy, the boy's sister with her boyfriend, who was 19 years old at the time. And it was apparently a traumatic experience. The boy was thrashing around, horrible voices coming out of him, horrible experience. The 19-year-old lad, being like the protector, basically shouted, like, leave him alone, take me instead. Now, you should never, ever do that in front of an ADE or what you think is a demon. You should never invite them into you. Now, what happened at that moment is the 12-year-old calmed down and it all stopped. And they put a tick in the box, exorcism works, job done, let's all go home and live our lives again. 6 months later, that 19-year-old lad is in his house with his girlfriend and a friend of his. It's a normal day. And the next thing he knows, he's in a prison cell covered in blood. He has no idea how it happened or where, why. And then I explained to him, you're in here because you just murdered your friend. Now, the story goes he was in the front room and he felt like he's been possessed by something. He went dark. Now, I've had this experience myself as a child. I know exactly what he's talking about. I remember see my eye sockets like go away and retreating into the darkness, or something else came in front of me. So I know what he's talking about. So he said it went dark, and that's all he remembers. But what happened was he picked up a knife and stabbed his friend to death. Out, he chased him outside. That there'd be altercation, and then stabbed him to death at 19 times. And then he went to prison. And then the Netflix documentary, I think it's called Devil on Trial. It's worth watching it. Um, and the reason it made headlines and made history, like law history, because it's the first time that the devil was used as an excuse for murder or manslaughter or that sort of felony. But of course, he didn't get anywhere with it. He got thrown out. But the guy only actually served 2 years
Mm.
for I think they called it. I don't know what they call it in America, but it's criminal manslaughter. So they tried to say that he wasn't himself at the time. He's possessed. You know, what they call it, mentally disengaged, whatever it be. But you only got 2 years.
It sounds like a crime of passion type of thing, like they got in the.
Oh, they just say, oh, there was jealousy between the girlfriend and blah
Mm,
blah blah. But he stance is like, no, that didn't happen. Now, the reason I tell that story is because I'm trying to explain and show an example as the EDE at the time, when it was messing with that poor kid, then got an invitation to go to somebody else. And he did. But it doesn't matter it was 6 months later to an EDE. It could have been 6 minutes later. It could have been 6 years later, 60 years later. It doesn't matter to an EDE. So the EDE, he probably just took over that body when he felt like it. That's that, you know. So they don't have any time zones to really worry about, which must be a unique experience to be part of, to know that you can travel anywhere in space and time at will, which which is why these things are really, quite unique.
mm,
Quite powerful in their world, but they're not powerful here. They can't harm you physically, but they can get other people to do their bidding. That's the problem, is other people. If they're taken over their own free will, they people do stupid things, and then they even go, "I don't know why I done it."
mm,
You know, there's many a murderer I'd say is in prison right now because of something they did had no control over. I'm not saying they weren't probably bad people to begin with, but their life, if you look at their life, they probably had terrible childhoods. There might have been abuse, neglect, and they've been brought up in that world where it's perpetually negative.
mm,
So they've been groomed throughout their entire life to just be the next Burger King
mm,
for an instant. So, and again, it doesn't matter an EDE how long that time takes.
mm,
As long as they get what they want, and they'll have multiple sources as well. So once they're done with one, well, they can feed multiple times from multiple people. So that's where you start getting into the whole multiple personality disorder thing. Can one vessel host contain multiple EDEs? And if so, why on earth? Why would multiple EDEs focus on one person? That I don't know yet. I don't have an answer, but it's a fascinating world when you really open up that can.
mm,
Um, but I think they're responsible for a lot of problems. And the reason I want this to be out there, as Jerry Mozinski does as well, and he said he's behind the SEPI agency fully. In fact, he's got our video on his website. He's actually put it on his own website. The reason we're passionate about getting this message out there is because we want to stop mental illness and we want to stop suicides in men, especially men. We want to stop it all. And we firmly believe if only the medical profession could really look at it properly and really accept the fact that there's things out there they can't control and are real, then we can really help people. So this agency, we're not medical professionals, would never stop people from taking their prescribed drugs or recommend they stop smoking suddenly or stop drinking suddenly, or we're not doing that. But what we would do for somebody that thinks they've got a possession or an attachment, as I prefer to call it, is that they can look at their lifestyle and go, what can I change to stop being a negative, perpetuating this negative circle of negativity? Because they will keep it going round and round and round and round, until the day they die.
mm,
So it'll be so none of it's about medical intervention. It's about okay, what's going on in your life? How 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 can we break the links? How can we start unlinking it? Is it your job? Is it the people around you? Is it your love life? Is it your habits, like i.e. drinking, drugs, whatever other depravities they might have? But really look at those things and staring it in the face and going, how am I going to do this? And that is it. And the main tool is to remind individuals that you are individuals and that you own your own free will. Nothing in this entire universe can take your free will as long as you've got control of it. They can trick you of it, and God knows they've tricked a lot of people from their own free will. I mean, you've only got to look at the events back in 2020 to see people's own free will was taken from them en masse.
yeah,
They're all convinced to do something stupid to themselves because they were convinced it was the right thing to do. That was a huge example of their free will being taken from them by deception.
and being
So all
convinced by other people that were convinced,
yeah,
that,
and all those that were closed to that,
yeah,
were then demonized, to use a
yeah,
word.
yeah. We
And
know how that feels.
yeah, do. And that tactic's been used throughout history. Let's
Yeah,
go back to the April Fool's Day thing. People were demonized for not taking on the new calendar system.
mm,
It's ridiculous. So if you've got an EDE, or you think you do, you've got to remember your own free will. And you've got to start saying things like affirmations to yourself, like, I do not consent for you to feed off me any longer. If I made a contract with you unknowingly, I'm now shredding that contract at no ill effects on me or others. And you must say that last bit, definitely. You must ensure that when that contract's broken, that no ill effects will come to you or others around you. Because these things are horrible. They can't harm you, they can try and harm somebody that you know. So you got to do that. And they have to obey. They have to obey.
Mm.
Now, if you're famous and you're a multi-millionaire, because you gave into an ADE 20, 30 years ago, and you decide actually it's not worth your health anymore or your happiness, and you want to be free of your ADE, you're going to have to break that contract too, but you're not going to get those phone calls anymore. So everything you've gained through the help of an ADE, you're going to lose. It doesn't mean you're going to lose all the millions of pounds in your bank because you've already made that, but you probably won't get the film parts anymore or the album deals or the adulation that you saw. All that's going to stop because the ADEs are one that's been pretty much making it. Although, if you're lucky enough, if you're big enough, your success will just roll on as a legend anyway, and you'll still be successful, but you just won't have that ease that you probably experienced before because you're going to break the contract. Like that person will start becoming healthier, happier, having better relationships, non-suicidal, and enjoy their wealth and their
Mm.
success. So you can break the contracts. People think you can't break a contract. Yes, you can, because in my eyes, let's put it back in police perspective, it's illegal. You did not consent to it in the first place. So absolutely you can. So that's why we are pushing this. We want people to understand that. We just really truly believe. I literally feel in my heart people will have better lives if we point these things out and we start telling people, how to get rid of them step by step, small, tiny steps. How are you going to make your life better? Now, we can't just give people millions of pounds and hope their life gets better because even millionaires are miserable. A lot of them are miserable people. They've stabbed people in the back to get where they got, and all. They've done business quite, you know, negatively to get where they've got, and they're still not happy. I can't remember who told me. A friend of mine said he knows a millionaire, and he said he's never happy. So he goes and buys himself on the next Ferrari or the next Aston Martin, and because he likes his cars, but he's not really happy. And the only relationships he's had with women are women that are just latched onto him for his money.
Mm.
Right? He's already gone through two divorces. That's cost him a lot. How is that an existence?
Mm.
So even if SEPI agency were in a position to give people millions of pounds and make their lives better, it's not going to make you happy because you've got to make yourself happy. It's not our job or anybody else's job to make you happy. You've got to do that. And I think it's my wife who told me that.
I'll tell you what, I think on that note, we've covered a lot about EDEs and everything. I think if we leave it there, Dave, because I'm trying to keep these to about an hour. We've gone sort of almost hour and a quarter now. We'll have to do it again, and perhaps we'll go into the world of UFOs and other strange phenomena the next time.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, if anyone watching this has got any comments to make, and we'll put up some links for the SEPI agency as well when I put this link out when this video goes out, and we'll welcome any sort of comments and that, won't we? And we'll try and answer any questions. But also, if you're interested in UFOs, which I hope a lot of you are, the Essex UFO and Paranormal Group meeting next the first Friday of April is a fellow named Darren Cooper, and he's had a great UFO experience of his own, which he'll be talking about. He's our next guest speaker. So hopefully, Dave, you'll be covering that because I think you'll enjoy talking to Darren.
Yeah, so I mean, I've gone a lot about ADEs here, but yeah, we investigate UFOs as well. So if you go on our YouTube channel at SEPI Agency, there's videos about the Jerusalem 2011 UFO that we've
That was
investigated.
interesting. Yeah.
Um, I've just put up a new video a few weeks ago about 5 cases, and there's UFOs in that as well. So yeah, absolutely go and check us out, or go to our website www.sepi-agency.co.uk or .com, both work. Yeah, so just out there, but yeah, that'd be good.
And also, if people are interested in actually joining, are you just taking military and police on now? Or-
At the moment, I'm trying to still bolster the officer numbers by people that have served in public services such as police, army, NHS, Sea Rescue, NCA, um, fire rescue. I'm trying to do that side only because I want the framework in place. But absolutely, in the future, we'll take on other people and train them up.
Hmm. So really, I mean, yeah, if there's any police or army watching this or any military service and you're interested, please get in touch with
Yeah,
Dave, obviously, or myself, or whatever. But anyway, Dave, thanks so much for coming on. And as I say, we'll do it again. Perhaps maybe not the next show. I need to get Dave Hobbs back on again because I said we'd do another show with him. But
yeah.
we'll certainly do probably another two or three shows about all this because I think we've got enough stuff to keep up with, haven't we? Anyway, with the cases that are going on.
We've got
But
about 39 on our box at the moment.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
then that'll probably be any two by the time we talk again. But I'll hopefully see you in a couple of weeks anyway. So
yeah. So
we'll leave it there then and say good night and thanks very much for watching everybody. And I hope you'll join us again for the April talk as well. All right. So
all
take
right.
care. Right. Cheers. Cheers, babe. Bye bye.